She had been walking past his gate for 9 years before she ever rang the bell. Not for charity, never for help. Just 2 miles in snow that was 14 degrees Fahrenheit on a Saturday morning at 6:42, with a golden retriever on a leash she had pieced together from her son's old shoelaces and a coat too thin for the weather. He opened the door, saw the dog, then saw her hands. He offered her a ride home. She said, "I'll walk." Darius Obadiah Bellamy watched her until the snow took her shape. The parking lot behind the Highmark building on East Carson Street was empty at 6:42 on a Saturday morning. The lot lights were still on. The sky was the color of stripped pine. The snow had been falling for 2 hours. Jasmine Renee Whitfield came out of the service entrance carrying a yellow Aramark bag with her work shoes inside. She had finished the third building of the night at 6:30. She had been on her feet since 10:45 the previous evening. The cold hit her at the door, and she pulled her coat closed and started across the lot toward the bus stop on 17th. She saw the dog before she saw the leash. He was sitting beside the dumpster on the back side of the lot, not lying down, sitting, upright, holding his weight off his left front leg the way an older dog does when the joint has given up on him. The fur on his neck was wet and matted. A patch above his right shoulder was missing entirely. Underneath the patch, the skin was pink and old. He was a golden retriever. He looked at her without surprise. She stopped walking. 3 things happened in her head in the next 4 seconds. She noted that he was wearing a collar. She noted that he was not lost the way a stray is lost. He was lost the way someone's animal is lost. And she noted that no one was looking for him in this parking lot at 6:42 in the morning and 14 degrees. She crossed the lot. The dog did not move until she was close enough to touch him. Then he stood up. He put weight on the left leg and winced. He waited for her to decide. She knelt. She pulled off her glove. She turned the tag on his collar. "Marlowe, please return to 1247 Squaw Run East. Fox Chapel." There was a phone number under the address. She read it twice. She knew Fox Chapel. Everyone in Pittsburgh knew Fox Chapel. She had cleaned offices for clients who lived there. She had never been inside any of the houses. She turned the tag over. On the back in handwriting that had faded almost all the way out 4 words, "My name is loved." She read them. She did not understand why her throat closed. She read them again. She pulled her phone out of her coat pocket. The screen was dark. She pressed the button. A message came up. No service. Add funds. The plan had run out yesterday. She had known it would. She had known it on Thursday when she chose between adding minutes and buying Malik's prescription refill. She had chosen the prescription. She would choose it again. She put the phone back in her pocket. She did not call him. She did not have a way to call him. She looked at the dog. The dog looked at her. She unwound the work shoe strap from her bag and threaded it through his collar. She tied it. She tested it. It held. The bus stop on 17th was a 1/4 mile in one direction. 1247 Squaw Run East was 2 miles in the other. Jasmine Renee Whitfield was 31 years old. She had not been driven anywhere in 5 years. She turned away from the bus stop and started walking north. The wind was at her back. It was the only mercy. 2¼ miles north of the parking lot, in a house on Squaw Run East, Darius Obadiah Bellamy was sitting at his kitchen table. He was 49 years old. He had founded Bellamy Vertical Partners in 2007 in a 1-room office above a hardware store on Liberty Avenue. The firm now held a portfolio of mixed-use developments across 6 cities. Forbes had run a profile on him in 2021 with the headline that he had not chosen and did not like. He had not given an interview since. That morning he had come downstairs at 6:12 and seen that the back door was open. Not broken, not forced, open. The kind of open that happens when someone has pulled a door closed without quite latching it, and then the wind has done the rest. He stood in the doorway for a moment. The cold came through the kitchen. He looked at the floor. He looked at the empty space beside the kitchen island, where the dog bed had been for 9 years, and was still. He walked to the bed. The blanket was folded back. He touched the blanket. It was cold. He went outside. He stood on the back patio in his slippers and called the dog's name once. He did not call it loud. He did not call it twice. Then he came back inside, closed the door and sat down at the kitchen table. He did not call the police. He did not call his assistant. He did not call Winston Reginald Holt, the man who had managed his properties for 22 years and would have been on a flight by lunchtime if Darius had asked. He did not call anyone. He did not move. He sat at the table for 22 minutes. In that 22 minutes, he did not check his phone. He did not get up to make coffee. He did not turn on the kitchen light. He looked at the empty water bowl on the floor beside the refrigerator, the dish that had been refilled every morning since 2016, and he understood something he had been refusing to understand for 14 months. Marlowe had been Imani's dog. Marlowe leaving was not the same as a dog leaving. Imani Sadeh Bellamy had died on November 3rd the year before. Pancreatic cancer. 44 years old. She had picked the dog out of a litter in Greensburg when he was 8 weeks old. She had named him Marlowe because she liked the sound of the word. The dog had been hers in the way that dogs become someone's. He slept on her side of the bed when she was alive, and on her side of the bed when she was not. For 14 months, Darius had not changed anything in the house. The books on her nightstand were still on her nightstand. The coat by the side door still hung where she had left it. The dog still slept on her side of the bed. This morning, for the first time in 14 months, something of hers had left the house. He did not know yet that the dog had been found. He did not know yet that 2 miles south of him a woman had already read the back of the tag and put her phone back in her pocket. He only knew that the dog was gone. He did not weep. He had used up weeping 14 months ago, and it had not come back since. Marlowe was a 9-year-old golden retriever. He was also the last thing in this house that had ever heard Imani laugh. The gate at 1247 Squaw Run East was open when she got there. It was 8:19. She had been walking for 97 minutes. Her left glove had lost a finger somewhere on Beechwood Boulevard, and she had not noticed. Her lips were cracked. The skin under her eyes had turned a color that was not quite blue and not quite gray, and was the color the body turns when it has been outside too long and the heart has decided to ration warmth. She walked up the drive. The drive was long. The drive was lined with hemlocks. The hemlocks were heavy with snow. She climbed the 4 stone steps to the front door. She lifted her hand to knock. The door opened before her knuckles met the wood. Darius Obadiah Bellamy was standing in the doorway in a gray cashmere sweater and dark trousers and house shoes with leather soles. He had a phone in one hand screened down as if he had been about to dial something and forgotten. He looked at the dog. He looked at her. He looked at the dog again. The dog did not pull toward him. That was the first thing. The dog stood at her left knee with his weight off his bad leg and looked up at Darius the way a dog looks at a person he knows but is not yet ready to be returned to. 4 seconds passed. Then he took 1 step forward, leaned his head against Darius's hand, and stepped back to her knee. She did not understand what she had just witnessed. Neither did he. Darius spoke first. "Where did you find him?" "East Liberty, behind the IGA, on Penn. That's 2 miles, 2.25. He looked at her again. The coat, the hands, the strap from a work shoe knotted through the dog's collar, the bag with the Aramark logo. He was a man who had built a company on the ability to read a situation in under 30 seconds, and he had read this one before she had finished saying the word quarter. "Come inside. Warm up. I'm all right. Let me drive you home. I'll walk. It's still snowing." "I know." There was a pause. He did not push. He did not say anything about her shoes, which were soaked through. He did not say anything about the temperature, which had not climbed above 16. He did not say anything about the 2 miles she had just walked, or the 2 miles she was about to walk back. He did not say anything about her glove, the missing finger, the bare red knuckle inside it. He had seen all of it. He bent down. He took the strap off the dog's collar and handed it to her without speaking. She put it back in her bag. "Thank you for bringing him back. He was on the ground." That was all she said. She did not say she had walked 2.25 miles in 14-degree snow for a stranger's dog. She did not say her phone was out of minutes. She did not say she had a son in a hospital bed 3 miles south of here who would not be discharged until somebody in an office somewhere approved a bill she could not pay. She did not say any of it. She turned. She walked back down the 4 stone steps. She crossed the gravel of the drive in a straight line, the kind of line a person walks who has decided where her feet are going and has no intention of letting anything change that. The dog watched her from the doorway. The dog did not whine. The dog did not pull at Darius's hand. The dog simply watched. Darius did not close the door. He stood there until she reached the gate. He stood there until she turned south on the public road. He stood there until the snow that was still falling between the hemlocks took the shape of her shoulders and gave it back to the morning as something blurred and walking. He did not yet know her name. He did not yet know where she was going next. He knew only that he had seen someone walk like that once before. Jasmine Renee Whitfield was 31 years old. She had been a single mother for 7 years. She had not slept more than 4 consecutive hours in 11 weeks. She lived in a 1-bedroom apartment on the 3rd floor of a walk-up on Larimer Avenue. The rent was $890. She earned $14.75 an hour cleaning office buildings for a company called Aramark, 6 nights a week, 11 at night to 7 in the morning. 3 buildings. The Highmark building first, then the 1 Oxford Center, then the Federal Courthouse on Liberty. She had not always cleaned offices. She had started a nursing program at the Community College of Allegheny County when she was 22. 2 years in, she was carrying a 3.8 and was a semester away from her clinical placement. Her preceptor had already told her she would be hired into the pediatric unit at McGee within 6 months of graduation. Then she was pregnant. She did not consider it a mistake. She considered it a calculation that had come out differently than she had planned. She finished the semester she was in. She did not enroll for the next one. The father of the child was a man named Andre Demetrius Booker. He had been 23. He had been charming. He had left Pittsburgh 4 months before Malik was born. He did not pay child support. He did not pay anything. In 2023, he was sentenced to 7 years at SCI Pittsburgh for armed robbery. Jasmine filed a form with the state requesting that her son not be brought to visit him until Malik could make that decision himself. She did not feel triumphant signing it. She felt the way a person feels when she closes a door she should have closed earlier. Her mother, Patricia Louise Whitfield, had died on a Tuesday in August when Jasmine was 19. The cause of death on the certificate was listed as complications of type 2 diabetes. The actual cause was that Patricia had been uninsured for 2 years and had been managing her glucose with what she could afford. She had finally walked into the emergency room at Allegheny General on a Tuesday morning when she could no longer feel her feet. The triage nurse had given her a number. She had sat in the waiting room for 8 hours and 20 minutes before anyone called the number. By the time they called her, her name was already past saving. Jasmine had been in a chair in that same waiting room when it happened. She was the one who had driven her mother there. She was the one who had counted the hours. She had not been inside a hospital voluntarily for the 7 years between her mother's death and the night a 2-year-old Malik went into his first sickle cell crisis. She had no choice that night. She had been making the choice ever since. Malik Anthony Whitfield had been diagnosed with sickle cell disease at 4 months old. Sickle cell disease is a hereditary blood disorder. It affects roughly 1 in every 365 black births in the United States. The red blood cells, which in a healthy body are round and flexible, in a sickle cell body are crescent-shaped and rigid. They get stuck in capillaries. They block blood flow. They cause a vaso-occlusive crisis. Mothers call it a pain crisis. That is the part the children feel. A single crisis can cost between $25,000 and $50,000 to treat, depending on length of stay and complications. Malik had been hospitalized 4 times in the past year. Jasmine had learned the vocabulary of insurance, copay, formulary, prior authorization, out-of-network exception. She knew the names of the drugs Malik took the way other mothers knew the names of cartoon characters: hydroxyurea, folic acid, Penicillin V potassium twice a day until age 5. She knew which pharmacy charged what for the same prescription. She knew the difference between a refill that required a doctor's signature and one that did not. She had become an expert in a discipline she had not asked to study. She was not a victim. She did not think of herself as one, and would have been offended if anyone else had. She was a woman running a life with the precision of someone who could not afford to miscalculate. She was 31 years old. She had not slept more than 4 consecutive hours in 11 weeks. The math on most days was unforgiving. 5 years ago, when Malik was 2 years old, he went into his first crisis at 3 in the morning. She had known something was coming for 2 days. He had been listless. He had refused his bottle. He had pressed his palms against his shins, the way children with sickle cell press against the places where the pain has started to settle in. She had already given him acetaminophen. She had called the on-call nurse line. She had been told to bring him in if his temperature went above 100.4, or if the pain got worse. At 3:12 in the morning, his temperature was 102.8. She did not have anyone to call. Her mother was 4 years dead. Andre Demetrius Booker was somewhere she did not know and would not have answered if she had. She had a neighbor across the hall who worked a night shift at a Sheetz on the East Carson side. The bus did not run on her street at 3 in the morning. The closest cab company had stopped answering at midnight. She had a 2003 Toyota Corolla in the alley behind the building. She wrapped Malik in a blanket and buckled him into the rear-facing car seat and got behind the wheel and turned the key. What happened next she remembers in pieces. She remembers the windshield wipers. She remembers a streetlight on Stanton that was out. She remembers that she was crying without knowing she was crying because there was no sound coming out of her, only water down her face onto the steering wheel. She remembers checking the mirror at every stoplight to see if he was still breathing. She remembers that he was. She remembers the next light. She remembers the next. At the corner of Penn Avenue and Negley, the light was red. She did not see it. The Chevrolet Suburban, coming through the green from the other direction, was driven by a man named Stephen Lucas Garrity, who worked overnight at the post office on the south side and was on his way home. He was sober. He was alert. He was doing 38 in a 35, and he was watching his green light, and there was nothing for him to do about the small sedan that crossed his path at 60 miles an hour at 3:26 in the morning, except hit it. The Suburban hit the rear passenger side. Malik's forehead struck the metal frame of the car seat. 14 stitches. A scar that runs from the outer edge of his right eyebrow up into his hairline, and his doctors have told her going to fade, but never quite disappear. He lost partial peripheral vision in his left eye, the kind of loss the average person does not notice, and the affected child compensates for without ever knowing he is doing it. He did not lose the eye. He did not lose his life. She was not charged. The officer at the scene determined that the medical emergency constituted exigent circumstances. Stephen Lucas Garrity, when interviewed at the hospital, said the woman driving the other car had been crying and was holding her son and looked at him with an expression he was not going to forget. She had not almost killed her son with sickle cell that night. She had almost killed her son with panic. That distinction was the one she could not move past. She sold the Corolla in March of that year. She did not replace it. She started walking. She made a rule and gave it the kind of name a rule gets when you have lived inside it long enough that it does not need explaining. The rule of foot. Under 4 miles, she walked. In an emergency, she walked. When her mind was not choosing her speed, her feet were going to choose it for her. She has not driven since. Panic, she had learned, is not a feeling. It is a decision the body makes when the mind stops choosing. By 2021, the rule of foot had become its own quiet discipline. She walked Malik to Lincoln Elementary on Larimer at 7:45 every weekday. 42 minutes from the apartment by the bridge over the rail yards. He liked the bridge. He liked counting freight cars. He counted them out loud to her, and she counted them with him. And the rhythm of the counting and the rhythm of the walking became the same rhythm. And that was the rhythm of his childhood. She walked him to Dr. Olamide Adeyemi's office at UPMC Children's on Penn Avenue for every hematology appointment. 2 1/10 miles from the apartment, 88 minutes if the wind was at her back, 94 if it was not. She walked him to the pharmacy on Highland for every refill. She walked him to the library on East Carson for Saturday story hour when he was well enough to go. She walked alone to her own clinic visits to the food bank on Negley when the month ran short to the bus stop. When she had to take the longer route to the second job, she picked up some months at a laundromat on Bryant Street. She knew the streets the way some women know their own children's faces. She knew the corner of Penn and Fairmount where the light gave you 22 seconds to cross if you started on the white hand and 12 if you started on the orange. She knew the bodega on East Liberty Boulevard that opened at 5:45 15 minutes earlier than its sign said because the owner's daughter had Crohn's disease and he understood what it was to need something before the day had officially started. She knew which block of Highland Park Bridge iced over first in November and which block did not ice until December, and which never iced at all because of the way the sun caught the railing in the early morning. She knew her city in the language her city did not speak about itself. Malik knew the rule. He had never asked why his mother walked. He had grown up inside the walking the way some children grow up inside a religion, and like a child inside a religion he did not need it explained. He needed it consistent. It was. When he was 6, his first-grade teacher had given the class a workbook page that asked them to draw something true about their family. Malik had drawn 2 stick figures with their feet on the ground, and a sun and a sidewalk that went off the edge of the page. Underneath in pencil he had written one sentence. "My mom and I walk because it makes us stronger." Jasmine had taped that page to the inside of her closet door. She looked at it some mornings before her shift, when the apartment was dark and the radiator was knocking and Malik was asleep on the pull-out in the living room and she was trying to find a reason to put her shoes on. She had not built a life. She had built a route through one. In a city built on hills, she had become an expert on the slow approach. 3 miles south of the parking lot where she had found the dog Malik Anthony Whitfield had been in a bed on the 6th floor of UPMC Children's Hospital for 9 days. It was his 4th admission of the year. The room was 12 by 14, pale blue paint, a window that faced east, a pulse oximeter clipped to his left index finger that read 94, a hydroxyurea pill at the bedside table that he would take with apple juice at 9 a.m. and again at 9 p.m. for the rest of his life. A pain chart on the wall by the door 0 to 10 cartoon faces beside each number, the kind of chart pediatric units use because 7-year-olds do not yet have words for what their bodies are doing to them. Malik knew the chart by heart. He knew which cartoon face went with which number. He had stopped pointing to the faces a year ago. He just said the number now. He had been a 4 when she walked in the night before. He was a 3 this morning. That was the direction they wanted. The hydroxyurea was working. The transfusions had held. The fever had come down on the 3rd day and had not come back. He was in the language of the unit stable and trending toward discharge. His mother knew the language of the unit better than she knew most of the people in her own neighborhood. Sickle cell disease was a discipline she had not chosen and had no choice but to master. She knew that the red blood cells in her son's body did not float and bend the way hers did. She had seen them on a microscope slide once at the Forbes Avenue clinic. She had looked through the eyepiece at the crescent-shaped cells, the rigid ones, the ones that crowded together and got stuck in the small places. She had understood that her son's body was at war with itself in a language nobody had translated for him yet. She knew that 100,000 Americans lived with the disease. She knew that 90% of them were black. She knew that the median life expectancy for sickle cell patients in the United States was somewhere between 52 and 58 years old. She had done that math the first week. She had done it every year since. She was 31. Her son, if the average held, would live to the age she was now and a little further. That was the calculation she carried into every Tuesday and out of every Friday and laid down on the kitchen counter every night before she put her shoes on for her shift. Tamara Lachey Green had been Malik's nurse for the full 9 days. She was 43 years old. She had been at Children's for 16 years. She had a son of her own at Penn State and a daughter in medical school in Cleveland. She did not talk about her own children to Jasmine. She did not talk about most things to Jasmine. She did the work, and the work was the conversation, and the conversation was complete. Reverend Cordell Eugene Hayes came by the room every morning at 6:55. He was the hospital's chaplain. He was 61. He had been an electrician for 30 years before he had become a chaplain. He sat in a plastic chair beside the bed, the way a man sits who has spent his life around things that hum and ache and occasionally need attention. He did not pray unless asked. He had asked Jasmine once on the second day. She had said no thank you. He had not asked again. He just sat. That was the way she preferred it. Malik was scheduled for discharge in 48 hours. If the billing department did not deny the claim again, the current bill was $87,432. Medicaid had agreed to cover 73%. The remainder was $23,606.55. She had read that number 11 times that morning. Each time the number was the same. She had $403.18 in her checking account. She did the math out of habit. She had stopped expecting it to add up. In a house on Squaw Run East, Darius Obadiah Bellamy was sitting in the upstairs office that had been his wife's for 16 years and his alone for 14 months. Imani Sadeh Bellamy was a pancreatic cancer death at 44. She had been a child advocacy attorney for the Allegheny County Office of Children, Youth, and Families for 16 years. She had also, in the last decade of her life, been a Saturday morning volunteer at the UPMC Sickle Cell Clinic on Forbes Avenue. Every Saturday, 8 a.m. to noon, for 9 years. She had walked parents through the paperwork they needed to access the assistance programs nobody had told them existed. She had done it without pay, and without telling most people in her own social circle that she was doing it at all. She had met Darius at 30. He had been 35. He had walked into a fundraiser at the Phipps Conservatory on a Thursday in October because his accountant had told him he should go. Imani had been seated at the table next to his. They had spent the evening arguing about a zoning case that had made the news 2 weeks earlier. She had been right. He had told her she was right. That was in his memory the moment that mattered. They were married 11 months later. They had not been able to have children. They had tried for 4 years. They had stopped trying the year before she joined the sickle cell clinic. The children in the waiting room knew her name within a month of her starting. After that, there was no question of stopping. 6 months before she died, when the cancer had moved into her liver and the third-line treatment had failed, and her oncologist had begun using the word palliative for the first time, she had opened a yellow legal pad and started drafting a foundation. She called it the Imani Project. She had outlined 5 programs: emergency copay assistance, parent support groups, hydroxyurea adherence coaching, school accommodation advocacy, transition to adult care navigation. She had drafted a letter of intent. She had not signed the founding paperwork. She had run out of time. Darius had found the yellow legal pad in her desk drawer. 11 days after the funeral, he had not opened it for a year. He opened it for the first time on the morning the dog had begun to follow him from room to room as if checking on him. She had also kept a journal, a small leather-bound notebook she carried in her work bag. She wrote in it every Saturday night after her shift at the clinic. She described the mothers she met, the fathers, the grandmothers. She did not record names. She recorded what she saw. A mother today told me she sleeps in the chair beside her son's bed because the chair is closer to him than the cot they offer. I did not have an answer for that. The grandmother on the 3rd floor sings to her grandson when his oxygen drops. The same song. Always the same song. I have started waiting in the hall to hear it. The boy with the gap in his front teeth ran to me today like I was someone he knew. I did not correct him. I do not think he was wrong. 11 weeks before she died, she wrote an entry that started the same way and did not end the same way. There is a mother who walks past the clinic on Saturdays. She has a boy about 6. He has the disease. She never comes in. She always walks past. I want to find her name. The sentence stopped there, just like that. She did not write anything else that night. 3 nights later she was admitted to the emergency room with a fever she could not get down. She never came home. The journal sat on Darius's desk in the upstairs office. The unfinished sentence had been sitting there for 14 months. Back to that morning, back to the gate, back to the moment after she walked away. Darius stood in the doorway with the dog at his feet and watched her get smaller against the white of the road. He could have closed the door. He should have closed the door. He did not close the door. He stood there for 40 seconds and he did not know yet what he was deciding. He only knew that something he had been carrying for 14 months had started to move. The thing was the way she walked. Not the way some women walk when they are trying to seem strong. Not the way some women walk when they are angry. Not the way some women walk when they are afraid. She walked the way a person walks, who has decided that her feet are the only part of her life she still controls, and is going to hold that control no matter what the weather does to her. He knew that walk. He had seen it for 96 days. In the last 3 months of her life, Imani Sade Bellamy had walked to every single one of her chemotherapy sessions at UPMC Shadyside, 1.8 miles from the house. Down Squaw Run East, across the bridge, through the neighborhood she had grown up in, into the cancer center on Center Avenue. She had carried her own bag. She had refused the car. She had refused him. She had refused the friend offering her a ride. He had asked her once why. She had said, "If I let them drive me, I let it have me." He had not understood her at the time. He had thought it was pride. He had thought it was a control mechanism. He had thought it was something they would talk through eventually. They had not talked through it. She had run out of time. She had been right. He had been wrong. He understood her now in the doorway of a house she had not lived in for 14 months, watching another woman walk away in 14-degree snow. Jasmine walked the way Imani had walked. Same rhythm. Same way of carrying her shoulders slightly forward, slightly down the way you carry shoulders when you have decided not to let the cold get into your spine. Same refusal to look back. Same way of placing one foot in front of the other, as if each foot was the only thing she could be certain of. He did not know her. He did not know her name. He did not know what she was walking away from or what she was walking toward. He only knew now that he had seen that walk somewhere before. He walked back into the house. He picked up the key to the Range Rover from the bowl on the side table. He did not call Winston Reginald Holt. He did not call his assistant. He did not write a note. He pulled on a coat and went out through the garage. He started the car. He drove out the gate. He found her at the end of the second block on the public road that ran south toward the city. He dropped the headlights to low beam. He held the car at the speed she was walking. He was not going to stop her. He was not going to offer again. He was going to see where her walk ended. Imani had walked because she refused to let dying choose her speed. Jasmine, he suspected, was walking for a similar reason. He wanted to know what it was. She turned right out of the gate, onto the public road, and started south. He stayed back. He had expected her to keep going down Beechwood, the route she had walked up, the route that would have taken her in the most direct line back to East Liberty, and the bus stop on 17th where this morning had probably begun. He had a map of Pittsburgh in his head from 20 years of commercial real estate. He knew every back road and shortcut between Fox Chapel and downtown. He knew what the fastest way home would be for a woman walking on foot in 14-degree snow. She did not take it. At the bottom of Beechwood, where the road met Bayard, she did not continue south. She turned left. Left was the wrong direction for East Liberty. Left was Oakland. Left was the hospital district. Left was UPMC, McGee Children's, the entire medical complex that sprawled along 5th and Forbes, and that anyone who had spent any time in Pittsburgh associated with the worst day of someone they loved. He did not understand the turn at first. He understood it 5 seconds later. She was not going home. She was going somewhere specific. He let her keep her lead. He kept the Range Rover at 15 miles an hour, the slowest the speedometer would register without falling into the next category of measurement, and he held the gap at 70 meters, and he did not catch up. The snow was falling thicker now. She did not cover her head. He could see her dark hair beginning to whiten along the part. She did not pull her collar up. She did not put her hands inside her coat. She walked the way she had been walking when she left his house. The snow did not change that. She did not speed up. She did not slow down. Inside the car, the seatbelt was loose across his lap. He had not buckled it properly when he got in. He had not turned on the radio. He had not turned on the heater past the lowest setting, because if the windows fogged, he would lose her. He drove, and he thought about Imani. He thought about a morning in March, 11 months earlier, when he had stood at the window of the house and watched her cross the Birmingham Bridge on foot, dragging the small wheeled bag that held the things she took to chemotherapy. The clear water bottle, the cardigan she could not sit through a transfusion without, the book she pretended to read and never actually finished. She had crossed that bridge in the same kind of weather as this. She had not looked back either. He had not followed her then. He had not understood that following might have been allowed. He understood it now, in a way that he did not think had words yet. At the corner of Bayard and Craig, a black Chevrolet pickup truck that had been waiting at the light turned right, without coming to a full stop. The truck did not see her. She was at the curb. She was about to step into the crosswalk. He hit the horn. He hit it once. Hard. The pickup driver braked. Jasmine stopped. She did not jump. She did not flinch. She simply stopped, and the truck slid 2 feet past where she would have been and corrected and continued through the turn. She turned her head toward the sound. She saw the Range Rover. For a moment she did not register what she was looking at. Then she did. The dark windshield. The man inside it. The man she had handed a dog to 90 minutes ago. She looked at him for less than 2 seconds. She did not wave. She did not nod. She did not signal anything that could be interpreted as gratitude or alarm or surprise. She did not change her face. She did not change her body. She turned forward. She kept walking. He stayed back. He stayed at the speed she had set. He did not pull alongside. He did not roll the window down. He did not call out to her. He had seen her see him. That was enough. She had seen him. He had been seen. The contract between them, whatever it was, had been signed in a look that lasted less than 2 seconds. She had known about the car since the 3rd block. She did not turn. She did not slow. She did not allow herself to think of the man in the car, except as a fact in the periphery, the way you do not think of the weather while you are walking through it, but you are still aware of every degree of it on your skin. She knew it was him. She did not need to look. She had heard the gate close behind her. She had counted the seconds the way she counted everything. She had heard a garage door open 70 meters back. She had heard the soft, deliberate engine of a vehicle that was not in a hurry. A vehicle that was matching her pace was a vehicle that was paying attention to her pace. She knew what that was. She also knew what it was not. It was not a kidnapping. It was not a robbery. The man behind the wheel had let her hold his dog at his front door and had not pressed for anything, not even a name. A man who would not press for a name at his own door was not a man who was going to press for one from behind a windshield in a snowstorm. She let the car stay where it was. She walked. She thought about Malik. She counted her steps. She had walked enough miles in her life to know that 100 steps was about a minute depending on stride, and she counted in hundreds. Every 100 steps, she said the same thing in her head. He is going to come home. He is going to come home. He is going to come home. She did not say it out loud. She had stopped saying it out loud the 2nd year. Out loud felt like superstition. In her head felt like physics. She thought about the tag on the dog's collar. She did not know why the words on the back of that tag had made her chest close up the way it had. My name is loved. Just 4 words. She did not know whose handwriting that was. She did not know what death or what life or what kind of woman had carried that pen and pressed it that hard. She did not know what it meant that those words had come into her possession this morning of all mornings. She kept walking. At the corner of Bayard and Craig, a horn sounded behind her at the exact moment a black truck cut into the crosswalk where she had been about to step. She stopped. She knew the horn before she turned. She had heard the engine on every block for the last 15 minutes. She knew the throat that horn had come from. She turned her head. She looked at the Range Rover. She looked at the man in it. Her body did not understand what she was looking at. Her body was tired and cold. Her body wanted in that second to walk over to that car and open the passenger door and sit down and let someone else do the deciding for the rest of the day. Her mind did not let her body do that, because her mind knew something her body kept forgetting. Help offered to someone who is barely standing is not help. It is permission to fall. She did not need permission to fall. She needed her son to live to his 8th birthday. She turned forward and kept walking. She crossed Forbes Avenue at the crosswalk in front of UPMC Children's Hospital at 9:42. The Range Rover stopped at the curb on the other side. He did not get out. He turned the engine off and put his hands on the steering wheel and stayed where he was. She walked through the revolving door into the lobby. The snow on her coat began to melt the moment she crossed the threshold. The shoulders darkened. The hem dripped. A small puddle gathered around her boots. The lobby was warm in the way hospital lobbies are warm, too warm, slightly stale, designed to take the weather off people before they had to make any other decisions. The receptionist at the visitor desk looked up. She had been on shift for the better part of 9 days. She knew Jasmine the way the doorman of a long-occupied building knows the tenants. Without speaking, without performance, without needing to verify, she nodded. Jasmine nodded back. She walked to the elevators. She pressed 6. She got off on 6. She turned right. She walked past the nurse's station and the playroom with the painted clouds on the ceiling, and the supply closet she had once leaned against for 9 minutes the year before, when she could not let herself cry in the hallway. Room 612. She pushed the door open quietly. Malik was awake. He was sitting up against 2 pillows. His IV line was running. The pulse oximeter on his finger was still reading 94. The cartoon faces on the chart said he was a 3 this morning, the same as he had been when she left at midnight. He looked at her, and his whole face changed. "Mama, you came." "I always come." She crossed the room in 3 steps and sat down on the edge of the bed. She kissed the top of his head. She did not say anything about the dog. She did not say anything about the walk. She did not say anything about the man in the Range Rover sitting at a curb across the street. She took his hand. Tamara Lachey Green came in 2 minutes later with the Morning Vitals cart. She did not say good morning. She looked at Malik. She looked at Jasmine. She said only what she had come to say. Financial office called up. "They want to see you." Jasmine stood. She squeezed Malik's hand and told him she would be right back. He nodded the way he nodded at everything she said. She walked down to the 2nd floor. The financial counseling office was at the end of a hallway lit too bright for what people came there to be told. The woman behind the desk had a nameplate that read Diane Patrice Hollis. She had a folder open. She looked up and smiled the small professional smile of a person who had practiced delivering both kinds of news. "The bill," she said, "has been paid in full." Jasmine sat down. She did not say anything. By whom? Anonymous donor. Anonymous from where? The woman behind the desk looked at her folder. She looked back at Jasmine. "That is all I am authorized to tell you." Jasmine looked at the folder. She looked at the woman's face. She looked at the small embossed seal of the hospital on the letterhead. She did not cry. She did not thank her. She did not ask the question a second time. She stood up. She walked out. She took the stairs back to the 6th floor because the elevator would have given her time to think. She returned to room 612. She sat down next to her son. She did not tell him. $23,606.55 paid by someone who did not want her to know who they were. Jasmine did not believe in luck. Jasmine believed in receipts. He sat in the Range Rover with the engine off and the snow accumulating on the windshield, and he did not move for 9 minutes. Then he picked up the phone. He called Winston Reginald Holt. Winston was 67 years old. He had been Darius's property manager, personal assistant, fixer, executor, and friend for 22 years. He had answered the phone at 6 in the morning, at 2 in the afternoon, and at 11 at night, in 3 different decades and 4 different time zones, and he had never once asked Darius what the call was about before Darius told him. Darius told him now. I need you to call UPMC Children's Billing. Winston did not say anything for 2 seconds. Then he said, "All right, what am I looking for?" "I need a list of every unpaid pediatric admission in the last 2 weeks under a patient named Malik, under the age of 10. Sickle cell, how urgent, today." 23 minutes later, Winston called back. He had 3 records, 3 children. 3 boys named Malik, admitted to the 6th floor at UPMC Children's in the past 14 days for sickle cell complications, all under the age of 10, all with outstanding balances after Medicaid had paid its share. Darius did not ask which one had a mother who walked in 14-degree snow. Pay all 3. Winston paused. All 3. All 3. Wire transfer. Individual account, not corporate. Do not run it through the foundation. Do not run it through the firm. Personal money. No tax deduction. Anonymous donor. Hospital is not authorized to disclose the source under any condition. Confidentiality protocols. Full. The mothers do not get a name. Not now. Not ever unless I say otherwise. What's the total? $187,412.16. Expedite it. It will be cleared by close of business. He hung up. He put the phone on the passenger seat. He looked at the front entrance of the hospital across Forbes Avenue. She did not come out. He sat there for another 17 minutes, and she did not come out. He had known she would not come out. A woman who had walked 2 miles in 14-degree snow to return a stranger's dog was not going to leave her son's bedside before discharge. She would sleep in the chair beside him. She had probably been sleeping in that chair for 9 nights already, and would sleep in it for 2 more. He could have stayed. He could have walked across the street and asked the desk for the room number and gone up and stood in the doorway and explained himself. He did not do that. She had not asked him to. She had not asked him for anything. He started the car. He turned the wipers on. He pulled away from the curb and drove back through Oakland and Shadyside and along the river road to Fox Chapel in a silence that he had been carrying in that car for 14 months, and that for the first time in those 14 months was not the only silence in his life. He pulled into the garage at 12:41. The dog met him at the door. He had been alone in the house for 3 hours. He had not destroyed anything. He had not soiled the rug. He had waited at the door with the patience of an animal who had been raised by a woman who had treated him like a person and was now living with a man who was learning 14 months late to do the same. Darius bent down and put both of his hands on the dog's head. The dog leaned into him with his full weight. That night, Marlowe slept where he had always slept. On the pillow on Imani's side of the bed, Darius slept on his own side. For the first time since the 3rd of November, the year before, the house did not feel completely empty. He had paid for 3 children to be returned to their mothers. He still did not know which one was hers. He had preferred it that way. 3 weeks passed. Malik was discharged on a Tuesday morning in February with 2 prescriptions, a follow-up appointment in 11 days, and a discharge summary on a clipboard that Jasmine signed without reading because she had read the previous 10, knew the language by heart. They went home. Larimer Avenue, 3rd floor. The radiator still knocked. The window in the bedroom still leaked, cold at the seam. She made him scrambled eggs and toast cut into 4 triangles. She watched him eat. She did not tell him about the bill that had been paid or the man who had paid it. She went back to work that night. Aramark. 3 buildings. 11 to 7. 6 nights a week. She had not forgotten. She started asking questions on the 4th day. She went to the financial counseling office. Diane Patrice Hollis was on a different shift. The woman at the desk that morning had a different name and the same answer. The donor is anonymous. We are not authorized. She went to the patient advocacy office. They were not authorized. She went to the hospital administration office on the 3rd floor. A woman with a polite voice told her the gift had been made under full donor confidentiality. Disclosure would be a violation of the agreement. Was she sure she wanted to pursue this through formal channels? Jasmine said she was not sure she wanted to pursue anything through any channel. She just wanted to know. The woman with the polite face said she was sorry. On the 7th day, she went to the chaplain's office on the 5th floor. Reverend Cordell Eugene Hayes was at his desk. He had a cup of decaffeinated coffee in front of him that had gone cold the way coffee in chaplains' offices goes cold. She sat in the chair across from him. She did not ask the question. She had not yet figured out how to phrase it. He looked at her over the rim of his glasses. He did not ask her why she had come. He said, "Have you returned the dog?" The room went quiet. She did not answer him. She stood up. She thanked him for his time. She walked out of his office and down the stairs and through the lobby and across Forbes Avenue. She did not stop walking until she had cleared the hospital block. Even then, she did not stop. Her feet had been making the decision for her. The chaplain knew about the dog. The chaplain was not someone who would have known about a dog unless somebody had told him. The somebody who had told him had not been her. She got on no bus. She made no call. She walked north, 2 miles, same route, through Oakland, across the bridges, up the long climb to Fox Chapel. Snow on the ground in patches now, but not falling. Sun out for the first time in 11 days. She arrived at 1247 Squaw Run East at 3:20 in the afternoon. She walked up the 4 stone steps and rang the bell. He opened the door himself. He had been doing his own door for 30 years. He was not going to stop now. "You paid for my son. I paid for 3 boys. I do not know which one was yours." She did not say thank you. Why? Because of my wife. That was the first time she had heard the word from him. He did not elaborate. She did not ask him to. She nodded one time. She turned around. She walked back down the 4 stone steps. She did not leave. She sat down on the second to lowest step. She put her hands in her coat pockets. She stayed there. She did not knock on the door. She did not call out. She did not turn to look at the house behind her. She sat there for 40 minutes. He did not come out and call her in. He did not bring her a coat. He did not knock to indicate that he had noticed. He let her sit. That was the thing he understood, that nobody else in her life seemed to understand. She did not want to be invited. She wanted to be allowed. At minute 41 she stood up. He opened the door before she had turned around. She walked in. She had not been invited. She had not been refused. She had simply been allowed. He led her to the kitchen. She did not take her coat off. She sat at the long oak table the way she sat in places that were not hers. Shoulders, forward, elbows, close to the body, hands folded into her lap. He went to the upstairs office and came back with the leather-bound notebook. He put it on the table between them. He did not say what it was. He opened it. He turned the pages slowly until he reached the last one with writing on it. He turned it so she could read. She leaned forward. The handwriting was small. The handwriting belonged to a woman whose hand had been tired by the time she made the words. The handwriting belonged to a woman she did not know. She read, "There is a mother who walks past the clinic on Saturdays. She has a boy about 6. He has the disease. She never comes in. She always walks past. I want to find her name." The sentence ended. She read it again. She did not look up from the page. She said, "I walked past that clinic for 9 years. He did not interrupt. She said Malik was diagnosed at 4 months. "I walked him past that clinic the first time when he was a baby in a stroller, and after that on my hip, and after that by the hand. Forbes Avenue. The clinic with the green awning. I walked past it every Saturday on the way to the laundromat on Bouquet." She stopped. She said, "I did not go in." She said, "I did not have the insurance to go in. The clinic was free if you qualified, but if you did not qualify, the bills could come for years afterward. I was not going to take on a bill I could not pay. So I walked past. I looked at the green awning. I said a small thank you in my head for the people inside doing the work for the children whose parents could fill out the forms. Then I walked on." She paused. She said, "I never went in. Not once. Not in 9 years." Darius said nothing. She said, "I did not know there was a woman watching me from inside that clinic. She did not know what to do with her hands." He said her name was Imani Sadeh Bellamy. He said she wanted to know your name. The kitchen was quiet in the way. Only kitchens get quiet when a woman who has been dead for 14 months has just been introduced to the woman she had been looking for. Jasmine sat very still. She looked at the page. She looked at the dash. She looked at the place where Imani's pen had stopped on a Saturday night 11 weeks before her death, in the middle of trying to give a name to a woman she had only ever seen from behind. Jasmine took the pen from the side of the journal. She did not ask permission. She did not look up at Darius. She put the tip of the pen on the page beside the dash. She said her name out loud first. "My name is Jasmine Renee Whitfield." Then she wrote it, in her own handwriting, in the small empty space. After the dash, she wrote her own name into the page, Jasmine Renee Whitfield. She set the pen down. The sentence read now, "There is a mother who walks past the clinic on Saturdays. She has a boy, about 6. He has the disease. She never comes in. She always walks past. I want to find her name, Jasmine Renee Whitfield." The sentence was finished. It had been waiting 14 months to be finished. Darius closed his hand around the edge of the table because he did not yet have anywhere else to put it. Jasmine put her hand flat on the page. She did not cry. She had used up crying years ago between Penn and Negley and the 8th hour of a waiting room when she was 19. She just held her hand on the page. 2 women who had never met had now met. One was alive, one was not. The journal could close. 6 months after the journal closed, the Imani Project opened its doors. The office was on Forbes Avenue, 3 doors down from the sickle cell clinic with the green awning. Same block, same side of the street. Same Saturday morning light coming through the front windows at an angle that Imani would have recognized. Darius signed the founding paperwork as executor of Imani's estate. The yellow legal pad she had drafted the plan on was framed and mounted in the front hallway of the office. Her handwriting, her 5 programs, her name on the glass above the door. The 5 programs were these: emergency copay assistance for families whose insurance did not cover the full cost of a crisis admission. Parent support groups run by parents who had already navigated the system and could walk new families through it without the language of a pamphlet. Hydroxyurea adherence coaching, because the drug that kept the crises from coming was a drug that had to be taken every single day, and every single day was a long time when you were 7. School accommodation advocacy for children whose absences and pain episodes were being treated as behavioral problems by districts that did not understand the disease. And transition to adult care navigation, because sickle cell patients who turned 18 did not stop having sickle cell. They simply lost the pediatric team that had been keeping them alive. These were not ideas Imani had invented. These were programs that already existed in scattered form across organizations like the Sickle Cell Disease Association of America. What she had done on that yellow legal pad was gather them into one place and fund them properly. What she had not done was live long enough to see them built. Darius had offered Jasmine the position of executive director on a Thursday evening in March. She had said no. She had said no because the salary was 4 times what she made at Aramark, and she did not believe in being paid 4 times what she was worth for doing something she had not earned. He had not argued with her. He had sat across from her at the kitchen table in the Fox Chapel house and opened a folder. He had shown her the numbers. 100,000 Americans living with sickle cell disease, 90% of them Black. Average out-of-pocket cost for a family managing a child with the disease, $44,000 a year. Medical bankruptcy rate among those families, 38%. He had shown her data from the Sickle Cell Disease Association and from the National Institutes of Health and from a health economic study published in the American Journal of Hematology. He did not ask her to feel anything about the numbers. He asked her to read them. She read them for 2 hours. At the end of the 2nd hour, she said yes. She did not say yes because she was grateful. She said yes because the numbers were the same numbers she had been living inside for 7 years, and she had never once seen them written down by someone who intended to do something about them. She gave her 2-week notice to Aramark on a Friday. She started at the Imani Project on a Monday. She did not move to Fox Chapel. She did not move into the house on Squaw Run East. She stayed in the apartment on Larimer Avenue. She paid her own rent. She walked to work. Malik Anthony Whitfield turned 8 that May. He blew out the candles on a cake his mother had made in their kitchen on Larimer Avenue. The cake had 8 candles and blue frosting, and a drawing of a freight car on the top because he still liked counting them from the Highland Park Bridge. He did not yet know. His mother had become someone whose name was now printed on the side of a building on Forbes Avenue. He did not need to know yet. He needed to be 8. On a Saturday morning in October, Jasmine Renee Whitfield left her apartment on Larimer Avenue and started walking south, same route she had walked for 9 years, down the hill, across the bridge, past the bodega on East Liberty Boulevard that opened at 5:45, through Oakland, along Forbes Avenue, past the clinic with the green awning. She did not walk past it anymore. She walked into the building 3 doors down. The air was cold, the sky was white. Snow had started falling an hour before she left the apartment. Not heavy, not yet, just the kind of snow that Pittsburgh sends as a warning before it sends the rest. She walked the way she had always walked. Same rhythm, same shoulders, same refusal to let the weather choose her speed. At 70 meters behind her, a dark Range Rover moved at the speed of a woman walking. She knew. She had known since the second block. She had heard the gate, close on Squaw Run East. She had heard the engine. She had felt the car behind her the way you feel a hand near your back that has not yet touched you. He knew she knew. They had been doing this for 3 months now. Not every Saturday, not on a schedule, just sometimes. He would follow, she would walk. Neither of them spoke about it. Neither of them needed to. She did not turn around. Not because of pride. Not because of the rule of foot. Not because she was afraid of what turning around would mean. She did not turn around because she did not need to. The green awning passed on her left. 3 doors later, the office. The name on the glass. The Imani Project. She stopped at the door. Behind her, the Range Rover pulled to the curb across the street. The engine went quiet. The driver's door opened and closed. She heard his footsteps on the pavement. She heard them stop. He did not approach the door before her. He did not reach for the handle. He stood on the sidewalk and waited. She turned. He was standing 6 feet away. Gray coat. The dog was not with him. Marlo was in the back seat of the car, chin resting on the window ledge, watching them both with the calm patience of an animal who had outlived the person who named him and had decided that watching was enough. "I'll walk," she said. It was the 4th time she had said those words to him. The first time had been a refusal, the second time had been a boundary, the third time had been a habit, the 4th time was an invitation. "Then I'll walk with you," he said. They walked in. The door closed. The snow kept falling. The city did not notice. Marlo lived 3 more years. He died on a Tuesday morning in November at the age of 12. He died on the pillow on Imani's side of the bed. His name tag still read, "My name is loved." I want to step outside the story for a moment. This story is fiction. Darius Obadiah Bellamy is not a real person. Jasmine Renee Whitfield is not a real person. Malik Anthony Whitfield is not a real person. The house on Squaw Run East does not exist. The Imani Project as described here does not exist. But the numbers are real. 100,000 Americans are living with sickle cell disease right now. 90% of them are black. The average out-of-pocket cost for a family managing a child with this disease is $44,000 a year. 38% of those families will face medical bankruptcy. The median life expectancy for a sickle cell patient in the United States is somewhere between 52 and 58 years old. These numbers come from the National Institutes of Health, the Centers for Disease Control, and the Sickle Cell Disease Association of America. They are not dramatized. They are not rounded for effect. They are what they are. The pattern in this story, a single mother walking miles in weather that should stop her because accepting a ride would mean accepting a kind of help that costs more than it gives, is not invented. That pattern exists in every city in this country. It exists in Pittsburgh, and in Chicago, and in Memphis, and in Houston, and in the town you are sitting in right now. I wrote this story because I wanted to put a name on something that does not usually get one. Not poverty. Poverty has a name. Everyone knows the word. I wanted to name the thing that happens when a person decides quietly, without announcement, that the only dignity left to protect is the dignity of choosing how you move through your own life. Even when that choice looks from the outside like stubbornness, even when it looks like pride, even when it looks like a woman walking 2 miles in the snow to return a dog she could have left in a parking lot. Some people give without being asked. Some people refuse without being explained. The world tends to misread both. Dignity is not what you have left when you have nothing. It is what you choose to keep when accepting help would mean losing yourself. If you know a single parent walking through something silent right now, show up quietly, without making it a performance, without needing them to say thank you, without needing them to explain why they said no the first time. Share this with someone who needs to know that small dignity is not small. And if you want stories that respect the people they are about, subscribe. We will keep telling them. See you on the next walk.